Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming back to yet another episode of The Gloving Paradigm. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and this week is going to be a very interesting topic to cover. So, just want to give everyone a quick heads up. Yes, I'm still in the little makeshift studio. This morning, I've been notified that they're actually going to be replacing the old broken fence that's in my backyard. So, if you do hear any drilling or any hammering or any stuff, you know why. And I do apologize for that if that actually bleeds into the audio. But let's get on with the topic at hand. This week, I'm going to be covering the age-old topic that I know a lot of newcomers talk about, and it's one of the biggest topics that they all talk about, and that's performance anxiety. If you don't know what performance anxiety is, it's another clinical name is stage fright, basically. And basically, why I'm going to be covering this is because I want to actually help a lot of the newcomers deal with this and actually help them manage their anxiety to actually do what they want to do. So let's actually just go with what is performance anxiety. It's also known as stage fright. It's an emotional response triggered by your fight or flight response, thus leading to a high form of anxiety and fear. One thing that I actually want to kind of break some ground here is there's a difference between just stage fright or performance anxiety and actually having what is called social phobia, also known as social anxiety disorder. It's social anxiety disorder is basically the same thing as stage fright, but it's to its extreme where it actually causes people to react in a way, basically, crawling up into a ball. That's actually the body's natural response of what it wants to do to protect itself. Now, if you don't know what the fight or flight response is pretty much the chemical reaction in the presence of danger, basically. So it's either you're going to fight your way out or you're going to run away, basically. That's pretty much how the fight or flight response actually works. And people putting themselves in a situation such as, in a generic term, public speaking or doing a play or any type of performance on stage in front of a big crowd of people, most people are going to have stage fright. It's just kind of this natural response of you putting yourself in a situation you don't want to necessarily be in and your body's reacting to it. Now, if you actually feel like you have social anxiety disorder, I do highly recommend actually getting that confirmed by a skilled physician, mostly just because if you actually have that, there are ways to actually help you deal with this disorder. So moving past all that knowledge, we're actually going to move into how to overcome it. Now, I got a lot of my information from ADAA.com. It is a website that does a lot of medical stuff, especially when it comes to anxiety disorders. Is where they actually specialize in, and this is where I actually got a lot of my material from. They actually kind of have as a generalized way of what people usually do to get over their performance anxiety. Now, I'll actually tell you from my own personal experience with performance anxiety, it is not as much of a problem for me when it comes to a camera. It mostly comes to the very beginning of being at a venue and actually trying to practice, and well, not necessarily practice, but actually perform in front of people is usually where I have my problem. The big thing is that you just need to understand is that it's not necessarily like I'm always scared when I go to a venue. It's usually I just need to kind of wiggle all the little insecurities I have when I first show up. And that's usually done by what I like to call a burner show. It's actually just, the first light show that you get in. I usually want somebody who I know and actually seen my shows before. That way I can actually kind of just break the ice and actually just, kind of break off all the rust that's all on me from not performing so long. So, I found my ways of actually dealing with it, and there's various other different ways you can actually deal with it. So, some of the ways that you have to actually overcome your performance anxiety is you actually have to address and revise any negative perceptions, beliefs, thoughts, images, or predictions related to your performing. Being seen or heard by others, showing vulnerability and, being perceived less than perfect is what usually will cause a lot of the fear. And to me, if you're actually having those kinds of fears, that's something you actually have to address and revise. Now, I know with a lot of people with their camera shyness, to me, it's just a very simple thing when it comes to recording shows. My mantra is I will never show this show to anyone when I go to record it. Every recording I ever do when it comes to my shows is with the express intention of not showing anyone except for myself. And the reason that is because then I'm taking all the pressure off of me. I'm not sitting there going, oh, I need to do so good so when people see this, it looks good. You're kind of just actually putting more pressure on yourself by doing so. And that's just something I don't really feel you should be doing when it comes to recording shows, so if you remove a lot of the metaphorical pressures that you put on yourself when it comes to these shows because you want to show people how well you've been doing, that's going to affect your performance in the end. So just addressing those things is going to be one way to actually help you. And one of the other major things I know a lot of people for some reason have such a difficulty grasping, and I don't blame them, but it is something that you're probably going to have to work hard on. And I can actually tell you from my own personal experience, it was hard for me to do this too in the very beginning because I always had self-doubt and I never really had a high amount of self-confidence in the past, but to each its own. So learning to accept yourself and not feeling the feeling that you have to prove yourself to other people is pretty much your root of healing. So it's basically where a lot of people are saying like stay humble and all that stuff. That to a point that is true. However, basically to me, the number one and the only person you need to impress is yourself. And this whole idea that people think that getting likes and comments on their shows is actually a good form of validation, when I just feel like that's just temporary validation. When you look at a lot of sports and a lot of other competitions, people who were really, really good a couple years ago, probably not as good as they were now, people are immediately going to just tell them that they're all washed up and all that stuff. And I can totally understand where a lot of people have that fear where they're like, oh, he was so good, now he's just all washed up, and you don't want to do that. However, I just feel like, a lot of people's other perceptions are just never fully realized, if that makes sense, about somebody, because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know what kind of struggles you're actually dealing with, and if you're actually good at hiding your struggles like I've come to do in my life. No one's ever going to know. No one will ever know any of your struggles if you're good at hiding them. But that's not the point here. So learning to accept yourself and where you are in your gloving career is probably one of the biggest steps you're going to make. The whole idea that you got to be good immediately is just this giant facade that I feel people put on themselves rather than feeling like people are putting it on them. So, if you're a person who may have the social phobia or the social anxiety disorder, you might actually have to step up to a point where you actually have to use medications or other natural supplements to help you manage it. But the one thing I do want to highly stress is that medication alone is not enough. So the main thing that I really want to explain is that, if you're at a point where you actually have to have medication that actually help you, it's not going to be a cure-all type thing when it comes to medication. So if you're actually at a point where you're actually having to use medication, I highly, highly suggest that you actually speak to a professional to help you manage your things. Now, I know not everything is going to be working for you, or everything's going to turn to a positive trend for you. However, it's one of those things, a trial and error, to help you find, especially when it comes to your specific case, to actually help you manage your needs the best way possible. Now, I'm not sitting there saying that I'm some medical professional and I'll be able to help you. I'm far from that, actually. I'm simply trying to open the door to help people find ways to help themselves, if that makes sense. So if you're at a point where you actually need medication, I highly suggest to talk to a counselor of some sort. That way you can actually work on things that you realize are not still improving from your medication, and hopefully they're not dropping more medications on you, but they're rather helping you find exercises to help manage everything else. So that being said, there's one other thing I need to cover before we actually go into the tips I have for you guys. There's a thing called cognitive behavioral methods, and these are things that a lot of doctors have put into place to help you break yourself of cycles. And what do I mean by cycles? Especially in the case of performance anxiety, there is a cycle of fearful avoidance. Now, if you avoid the situation, you have this immediate relief. The only issue with that is that you're reinforcing your fear to avoid things like that altogether in the long run, which is actually hurting yourself. So, you have this immediate relief by avoiding the situation, but you're reinforcing your fear of doing it altogether. So, there's a huge saying that my mom likes to say to me a lot, which is feel the fear and do it anyways. I've suffered from anxiety for a very, very long time. There's points where I just am overwhelmed by my own anxiety, and I still have to push myself through to actually accomplish what I need to do. Now, I'm not saying that this is only gloving related. To me, I get anxiety trying to set up utilities when I move to a new place. Okay, like that's how bad it is for me sometimes. So knowing that you have something like that and being able to actually push through it is actually going to show you much more benefit in the long run. So actually breaking yourself of these cycles of, fearful avoidance of situations like that is going to be a huge step for you. Now, there are a few tips that I actually took off the website from ADAA.com, and I kind of revised it in a way to make it a little bit easier for me to actually explain it to you guys. But they had 10 tips on their website that actually help you kind of break yourself and manage your anxiety levels. So the first one is shift your focus to contribute something of value to your audience. Especially when it comes to light shows, you want to make it feel very natural to yourself and very natural to your audience. There's a lot of people who are always concerned that, someone's going to see me mess up somewhere and they're going to be instantly disconnected, and then they're going to just pull out their phone and immediately get on it and while you're trying to do the show. Which, from my own experience, I've had a couple people do that, but not everyone does that. And, especially when it comes to glovers showing videos to other glovers, they're always concerned that they're always going to catch their, the mistakes that they made and all the mess ups that they made, which is not necessarily true. Now, I'll even say from my own personal experience, I have a tendency of just watching videos to see if I catch mistakes, but that's me more training myself to watch my videos to catch the mistakes. Because if I can catch other people's mistakes, am I making the same mistakes as them? And if so, how can I actually work on fixing that? Now, of course, I know everyone's going to sit there and be like, well, you can just practice, which is true, but that's not enough necessarily. So with that being said, you gotta shift your focus from, instead of being, what do people think? Am I messing up? You gotta shift away from all these negative perceptions of yourself and kind of just forget about that. You're at a point where you should be, instead of looking back of how bad you've done, you should be looking forward to see how you can make it better. Tip number 2 basically is a very simple one in my opinion. Stop scaring yourself. And what they mean by that is you shouldn't, let your fear of, judgment or retaliation or anything like that, any negative thing from your audience, because unless you're doing something completely vile and inappropriate, I don't really see your audience just grabbing a bunch of pitchforks and torches and coming after you with a mob. You know what I mean? So, you really need to help yourself stop scaring yourself, and thinking more positively about what you're doing is going to be a good way to go. And I know a lot of other people are probably going to say just, stop giving a crap what people think, which I know, even from my own personal experience, it's a little bit harder than, to do than it's actually been said. So, a lot of these things you're going to have to work on, and it will take time, and that's just what it is. So moving into the third tip is, refuse negative thoughts or, any feedback that's rather negative. Basically what I'm trying to say is when it comes to negative comments or negative feedback, basically, take it with a grain of salt, because if it's something where they're not actually giving you constructive ways to actually improve yourself, then they're not actually contributing anything of value to you at all. If they're just saying that you suck, then that's just their own personal opinion, and if they're not going to give you any way to actually help you, then you shouldn't really take their feedback at all. So to me, it's, refuse the negative thoughts and the negative feedback that are not constructively helping you in any way. And with people who actually critique on your stuff but actually offer you ways and ideas to help you improve, that's how you're going to have to go about it. And that's the kind of feedback you actually want to seek out. So the next tip after that, tip number 4, is pretty much any relaxing or calming practices that you can do to help you manage your anxiety. Deep breathing, meditation, yoga, things like that are pretty much the common things a lot of people will tell you to do. In my opinion, taking some time to just meditate for a bit before you actually go to a venue and do stuff is one of the things that always helped me with my anxiety. The same thing when it came to recording shows. The only thing that I actually get anxious about when it comes to recording a show is just whether or not I'm in frame. Now, granted, I do have a wide angle lens and a fisheye lens that can connect to a phone, so I don't necessarily have to worry about being out of frame, but I still want my show to be in a relative frame where, it's very visible. So, you have those calming practices that you can do. If you don't want to do yoga, that's fine. You got meditation if you don't want to do that. There are other things you can do, just, deep breathing. Scientifically, it actually shows you that it can help you slow down your heart rate, which will help with your anxiety, because anxiety is pretty much a trigger of adrenaline going through your bloodstream, and it's causing all the following effects of, high blood pressure, high heart rate, sweaty palms, shaking legs, shaky hands, all those things. So actually finding ways to actually help you combat your body's natural reaction of pumping you full of adrenaline is going to help. Now, the next tip, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, that's kind of ridiculous, but it is something that does help you shift your focus to a more positive stance, is actually to visualize your success. Now, I'm not saying that you should visualize yourself winning IGC, or BOSS, but that's something that's a goal that you should strive for if you're trying to go for that. However, just visualizing yourself actually having a positive reaction to your performance is just going to be a huge step in your head, because then you're not focusing on, oh, are they judging my show for what it is, or are they seeing all the mistakes that I'm doing, or is my show really, really sloppy? That's just reinforcing your fears by thinking that way. So visualizing yourself actually having a successful show and actually having a very positive time while you're at a venue or while you're recording or whatever the case may be, it's going to help really shift your focus to being positive and keeping yourself in that sense. The next tip after that is pretty much exercise healthful lifestyle habits. Exercising, eating healthy, actually taking breaks and actually stepping outside and getting some fresh air. Things of that nature is also going to help you, because as much as you don't think it's going to affect you, what you put in your body will actually affect the outcome of everything. I can go on and on and on about all that stuff, but just a little extra helpings of just healthier practices is probably going to help you maintain your anxiety. This can also refer to things like aromatherapy or, nutrient supplements that help you with that stuff. Drinking chamomile tea before you do a performance will actually help, because chamomile tea really helps with stress. Believe me, I used it a lot and I still use it to this day, and it does help with stress. So the next tip after that, which is tip number 7, is pretty much prepare your material. Now, I can totally understand where people are coming from when it comes to live performances. It's like, well, you don't have control over the music and you don't have control over how the pace is set or anything, which I totally understand where you guys are coming from. However, what I mean by when it comes to live performances or competitions or just, being at a venue, preparing your material is just like making sure your batteries are fresh if you need them, making sure that your gloves are nice and clean, making sure your diffusers are not all gunked up, making sure that your casings are set up right, making sure that your entire setup is all ready to go, making sure that if there's anything that would go wrong, you have the materials you need to fix it. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be carrying like a soldering iron and a blowtorch or whatnot to make sure that their gloves are working properly, but just, if you feel like you're gonna need a couple extra batteries just in case some batteries die, then, just keep an extra couple pairs of batteries on you. If you feel like your gloves are not clean, then go ahead and wash them. If you feel like they're worn out to the point that they're just done, have a replacement pair. I actually knew somebody when I was living in Flagstaff who I gloved with a lot, who always brought an extra pair of just regular whites with him just in case something would happen to his gloves. He can just change them out and still have a fresh pair to make them look clean. Now, when it comes to preparing your material for a light show video, that's pretty simple. Make sure you have your camera set up, make sure you have the placement of your camera set up so you're in frame, make sure you have your proper lenses on if you're using different lenses, make sure that your lighting in the room translates well onto the camera. Make sure, doing just a little test run of everything really helps, just to make sure that everything looks good. That's basically it. Now, when it comes to recording, it also kind of dictates of what song you choose, because as much as people think it doesn't really matter, I've always felt that your choice of music when you do a show is also going to affect how many people are going to watch it. Now, I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that people have their preferences, and people like hearing the music that they like, and if you're doing a song to something that they like, they're most likely going to watch it because they like that song. And if it's something that they don't really like in terms of music, they may not watch it. Now, I'm a person who doesn't really care about the choices of music you make. Now, granted, there's a couple exceptions to the rules when it comes to that, because certain genres of music just doesn't work for me. Like country music just doesn't work for me when it comes to light shows. Very few metal songs can actually work for me when it comes to light shows, but that's just my own personal preference. Now, if you're trying to get more people to look, you might want to see what popular songs or popular artists are going around in the lounge that people like listening to if you want to grab more of their attention. But I know a lot of people are going to just tell you that it shouldn't really matter what song you choose as long as your show is good, which to a degree that is true. But some people are going to be like, I don't really like this style of music. I can't really watch your show because I just don't like the style of music, which is totally understandable. That's where, you adapting to other genres is going to help you. So moving on to tip number 8, which is pretty much making connections with your audience. And, it sounds simple enough, but it's actually probably one of the hardest things to do. Even from my own experience of doing this podcast, I am not getting a whole lot of responses from people. But, I'm not allowing that to deter me from continuing with what I'm trying to do. So when it comes to making connections with your audience, it's basically, ways that you do your show to help draw in people. When it comes to like posting videos, people are thinking, oh, maybe the caption on top needs to really grab your attention, which it's technically true. If you're thinking in a marketing standpoint, that's how you're gonna have to do it, is you have to have something catchy to bring people in to watch it. But if you're like me, who just doesn't care what people write and you're just gonna watch their videos anyways, and it's totally fine. But there just little ways to help you connect to your audience is going to help you a lot more, especially when it comes to like recording videos. You gotta not only try what works for you, but try to see what other people say to help you improve your content towards people. And that's something I always do when it comes to my episodes. So hopefully I actually get more people to actually communicate with me so we can actually improve the show as much as I can. So tip number 9 is pretty much, it's kind of a weird saying, but just kind of follow me on this, right? And I wrote down stand or sit in a self-assured, confident posture. Basically, it's basically trying to just tell you, be comfortable with what you're doing. Just try to make yourself feel comfortable. So if you're like recording at home, make sure, your surroundings make you feel comfortable and relaxed. Make sure that there's not going to be anything that's going to cause you stress while you're trying to do the show. I can even tell you from my own personal experience, I don't even know how many videos I actually have that I probably haven't even deleted yet, or I've actually recorded shows and people walk in and interrupt everything. And of course, the people that always walk in, they always have to talk extremely loud and just like ruin everything, right? So putting yourself in a position that makes you feel comfortable and actually be confident is actually going to be a good thing, right? So the next tip, which is tip number 10, and the final tip basically, is stop trying to be perfect and just be natural and be yourself. You have to accept the fact that no one's perfect and you're not going to be perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's one of those kind of hard truths that people have to swallow, but it's true. Not everyone's perfect, and anyone who claims perfection is pretty much lying to you, because in my opinion, perfection is a false construct that everyone strives to be but will never achieve. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing or being very cynical. I'm just saying, striving for perfection is good, but trying too hard to get perfection is going to kill you. So being okay and being comfortable with you making mistakes is going to be a huge load off of you. Just from like my experiences in other hobbies in my life, like when it comes to like, and I know I'm pretty sure everyone's tired of me saying this by now, but when it came to like Magic the Gathering and going to playing tournaments, I wasn't those people who always wanted to play like the best decks in the format or play whatever the metagame is. I was more the type of person who liked attacking the metagame in my own way and trying from there. Now, granted, I wasn't the best player in the world and I never really made a huge winning record all the time, But at the end of the day, for me, as long as I had fun and was able to be myself, that was all that mattered to me. I can scrub out on so many tournaments and not even give a crap because, I was trying to have fun. And if I accomplished what I was going for, then I do what I needed to do. So, instead of grinding my, face into the stone and always trying to be the best person, I just try to be the best person I can be instead of trying to be the best person what everyone thinks I should be, right? So there's only one more quote I pretty much have to cover, and just to kind of give you some background, I watched this person on YouTube. His name is Brian Shaw. He's one of the strongman competitors. He's actually a 4-time strongest man winner who actually had a quote that I actually wrote down. I actually felt that it would actually help a lot of people with a lot of their performance anxiety. So what he's pretty much said when he was talking about this in this quote, he was talking about like after he had his operations to, reattach a bicep and all these other injuries that he sustained over the years, a lot of people were asking him how does he overcome these obstacles that would happen. So what he pretty much said was, especially when it came to training and things like that, this is what he was saying is just take it on a day-to-day basis. So find something to be positive about each day and work on to get better each day. And he was going on about, certain injuries that he sustained and what he did to go over. And so the other part he was saying was just think daily, I'm going to do something to get better. Also, I'm going to find something to be positive about, because if you're positive about your situation and getting better, you'll get better quicker. Now, so that's something I felt like was a really, really good quote that I feel like we can actually apply to here in gloving from outside of gloving. So, when it comes to your performance anxiety, you gotta kind of do what he says. You take it each day, and what you should be doing is trying to find something to be better at while also trying to find something to be positive about. Instead of watching your videos and going, oh, I made a mistake there, oh, I made a mistake there, and there, and there, you should actually find things in your shows that you're positive about, like, wow, my whips and flails look freaking fantastic, or oh my gosh, my finger rolls look like freaking butter, or oh my gosh, my tuts are so clean, except for certain parts, but that's something I'm going to work to get better at. But overall, they're still clean and actually smooth. Things that you reflect on very positively about is actually going to help you get better. And like he said, you're also going to be if you're positive about your situation on getting better, you're going to get better quicker. So that's pretty much the end of this episode. I'm very glad you guys all stick it through the end. I know there was a lot of stuff that I had to cover over this. There's still a lot to cover on this subject, which I'm very, very happy to open the floor to all my listeners. If you feel like you need some additional help on your performance anxiety, you can always talk to me, because I'm somebody who suffers from hypermanic anxiety all the time, and I have my ways of working through it. And I'm never above helping other people with the same problems I have and helping them get better with it. So you can either hit me up on my page on the Facebook, which is aptly named The Gloving Paradigm. You can also hit me up on my Discord server, which the link will be in the episode description for you guys. You can also hit me up personally through my email at muttonchopguy@gmail.com. I am never hesitant to actually respond. If it takes me a little while to respond to you, it's either because I'm doing something or I'm giving you this whole, Bible version, breakdown to help you with stuff, because I'm a person who kind of has a tendency of dumping information on people. So you have those 3 platforms that you can hit me up on. You never ever hesitate to talk to me about it, because I'm always available to talk to people about stuff like this, especially if it's something that I suffer from. I'm more than willing to help anyone out with it, just because I know how it feels to be in that kind of position and actually want to overcome it. So that is all for my episode today. I am your host, Peter, aka LPD8 Dubuque, and I'll see you guys all next week.